last night, I had the pleasure of playing my very first Dungeons & Dragons campaign, which, being a new player experience, would likely have been in one of the starter essential kits, and luckily for me, it was the Lost Mine of Phandelver. Although I own this book from many moons ago when I bought it originally to get into D&D, we were actually playing on Discord, so it was all digital. I wasn't DMing this, and I haven't actually read that much of the book, so not to spoil myself, and it's been very, very hard to resist the temptation to cheat. But, of course, our DM did say that if they detect any metagaming or cheating, it will be punished rather harshly. So, I should just point out as well that this episode is going to end when we reach Cragmore Hideout, I think the name is. Yes, Cragmore Hideout. So, depending on how long this video is going to end up being, you'll at least know how much progress the party and I have made. Group 89, as I like to call us, because of the Discord server we're in, which is made for new players. So our story begins in the city of Neverwinter. I do believe that the booklet does actually say that you start on the wagon going from Neverwinter to a little town called Phandalin, which is a mining town. And I think it appears as well in the Dragon of Icespire Peak adventure in the Essentials kit, but I've not got that yet. And I hope to run that adventure one day because I do rather like this setting. So we start in the city of Neverwinter. In fact, we all start in three of the four players start in. Hang on, three. Yes, three of the four players. Sorry, start in a tavern called the Drunken Headsman. And in walks my character Garvel the Grimhammer, a cleric of the Grave Domain, serving Kelemvor, the Lord of the Dead and Judge of the Damned. Not a dwarven god. Well, I don't think he would view himself as a god of anyone, really, just a god of living creatures, I guess, who are, well, soon to be dead and currently dead creatures, really. So, so my character walks into this tavern, and he's just about to get himself a nice mug of ale, having done his priestly duties at the Temple of Kelemvor in Neverwinter, seen to the catacombs, and all of a sudden he's pulled over, or rather called over, by Emil Cragwalker, a lawful good paladin serving under Moradin, the dwarven lawful good god, who's also in the middle of some business with, I forget his name, I think it's Gundren. I'll have a look at my notes later. Yes. So he's doing some business with this dwarf and a human by the name of Sildar Hallwinter. And along with him, two other hopeful adventurers are there as well. Shoria Simmons, a human warlock, and Eliza Elmwood, who is a wood elf fighter. So my character's strolled into this tavern, hoping to just have a nice peaceful ale, you know, as he's done for the past 200 years and living in Neverwinter, going about his duties. And all of a sudden he's called over, and they basically, the party's there saying that they've got a business proposition for us. So we hear out what Gundren has to say. And it's a fairly simple job, really. All we have to do is we have to escort a cart from the city of Neverwinter to the town of Phandalin, and upon doing so, we will receive 10 gold pieces. Now, we're not really expecting any trouble, really. We don't really know about any bandit troubles that might be in the area, although Neverwinter is the city that never sleeps, and there's a lot of crime going on, especially in the evenings. So whether that goes on outside of the city, we don't really know, and we tried to sort of get some insight checks, but we couldn't determine that something else is wrong here. We were able to tell that something was wrong, rather, but we couldn't tell exactly what. So for 10 gold pieces, we sort of agreed, but our human warlock, who has a history of charming people, having been raised in a brothel, she tries to put the moves onto Gundren and just see if we can perhaps make ourselves a few more gold pieces. Unfortunately, her attempts fail. However, Emil Cragwalker has quite a lot of luck with this, really, by being able to barter his way and sort of negotiate a better fee. He actually wants 30 gold pieces each for taking these dwarven goods to dwarven people, and I particularly liked how it used the, I guess, the innate dwarven nationalism, perhaps. So I quite like the idea that he would sort of exploit that with Gundren, but I think this dwarf he was talking to, who was giving us our quest, was far more interested in money than nationality, I think. But eventually we managed to bargain up to 25 gold pieces, and some more rounds of ale were brought in. And unfortunately they did have to come out of Emil's pay, so he was out of 3 gold pieces. Now, rather stupidly, my character Garveld, not really having much interest in material goods, to give you an idea of this, for example, his armour is rather undecorative, because that's essentially Kelemvor's realm. It's not really it's not really particularly heaven or hell. It's just this grey wasteland. Because he doesn't really believe that, I don't think he no longer believes, I think he no longer believes, rather, that souls shouldn't be punished as such, but they shouldn't be rewarded for good deeds. At least no longer. But yeah, I'm still learning about the gods, so I'm going to be learning a bit more about Emil's god, Moradin, and in return he's going to look a bit more into mine between the sessions. So I think we've got about a week between sessions, so that's quite good. And it gives us lots of time to perhaps strategize in character and things like that, and work out our next move, which should hopefully expedite things. As you'll come to know, this adventure took a fair while. It began at 6 p.m. and it ended at about 11:15 in the evening. So and to say we haven't really made a lot of progress. There was a lot of arguing and bickering. Now, anyway, back to what my character said. My character stupidly had said that gold is just trinkets to him, and that meant, of course, to this dwarf who was given us our quest, Gundren Rockseeker. I've just seen in my notes. Gundren Rockseeker said, "Oh, in that case, I don't have to pay you." So Emil did actually stand up for me and sort of went up to the dwarf and said, "Hey, look, he's a bit simple, can't you? He's clearly addled by his time in the tombs. Maybe take that back." And I do appreciate that he did that for me. However, I am pleased to say that my share of the money, so 25 gold pieces, will be split amongst them. So, and that works for me. My background gave me, I think, 15 gold pieces. No small amount from being an acolyte, I think I chose my background as. And also as well, I get comfortable lodgings, and perhaps even my party as well. We're all sort of lawful good, and I don't think there's going to be much in the temple that can really be stolen, so I don't think there's going to be any sort of trust issues with our Lady of the Night, Shoria. And perhaps, I don't know, maybe Eliza might feel more comfortable in the earthy catacombs of the Temple of Kelemvor, but then maybe she might find that even more claustrophobic because she's used to living in the woods. In Neverwinter Wood, I believe. She said towards the east, but I'm not sure for how far east exactly. So anyway, the deal was sealed, drinks were drank, and yes, we all then proceeded to sort of go to our different rooms in the tavern. I went back to the temple to make sure that there were no undead nasties there. What's the spell my character cast? Let me just have a quick look. It's a class feature, I believe. Eyes of the Grave, yep, so every morning and every evening at the Temple of Kelemvor, Garveld, he would cast Eyes of the Grave, which allows him to locate any undead within 60 feet that aren't in total cover. So we do that to make sure that there's no undead baddies risen from his funerary rites that he's performed. And also as well, in that morning after, on the day that we sort of go out to Phandalin, or we're supposed to, I cast Eyes of the Grave, so that means I've only got one more use before I'm due for a long rest. So, so the following morning, breakfast is also on Gundren as well. He's given us for free. We get some sausages, some weird looking bread, and also some strange green mush. So I think it was Emil who managed to get him down him. I just ate very slowly and very thoughtful as I sort of meditated on what Kelemvor's teachings were and things like that. Not that he's spoken to me in over 200 years, but still, it's worth thinking about what he might have planned for me. Given that my ear is more accustomed to adventure, I take that as a sign that Kelemvor wants me to go out and maybe bring some more people to his realm with dignity and pride. So Shoria compliments the chef on the sausages, which of course makes the chef so delighted that someone acknowledges him and his mother's recipe that she gets 2 more, and this comes into 3 more events shortly after. Eliza gives all her food to Shoria, and she packs it into a bag because into a backpack because she doesn't know where the next meal is going to come. Understandably so. So we all leave with somewhat full stomachs, or rather not grumbling bellies at least. And as we leave the tavern, we are confronted by a dog, seemingly a stray, who smells the sausages within Shoria's backpack. Now, through some very wily tricks, I can't remember if it was animal handling or if it was animal handling or deception that she uses to basically shoo the dog away and tell it and say, no, there's food over there. So she sends this dog on its way, and apparently that could have led to something else. No, I don't think there's very much. There's very much that it would have led to. I don't know if there were going to be thieves in a back alley that we'd have to fight, or if there might have been some treasure that the dog was leading to us as a reward, or maybe an interesting NPC. But we shooed the dog away all the same, and carried on to meet Johnny, who was looking after the horses, along with the wagon full of the mining supplies, pickaxes, shovels, sacks, I think, of grain and things like that, and other such things that might have been useful for the trip. Lanterns and all manner of things. I'm sure you know what I mean when I say mining supplies. So yes, Johnny was also called a gnome by Emil, and although he was a very small human, he was still a human all the same, so he got a bit annoyed at that. Fortunately, Shoria was able to bribe him with a spare sausage that she had on hand, and he was very grateful for that, and immediately started to prepare the horses for our journey to Phandalin. So there was a bit of bickering as to who was going to go where. It was very nice of Emil to sort of... Because this is something I like about Emil's character, played by, again, Sam. He's very seemingly respectful of his elders. Like, in the tavern, before we went to bed, or rather I left for the temple, he did ask what happens to the souls of the dead, and do people ever get lost and things like that. And I sort of spoke to him like someone in a confessional might, saying that yes, I believe they do, and they do go to, they always find their way to Kelemvor in the end, and that's sort of like it's meant to be more ominous with him. Perhaps even as time goes on, it might become more and more ominous. But he's always called the Doom Priest as well by Emil as well. But yeah, he was very respectful, saying, right, you get on the back, it's more comfortable there, and you can look out, and I'll do all the work looking out for scouts and driving the horses and things like that. And Eliza took the front of the wagon as well. And so Shoria and I sat on the back of the wagon, and we enjoyed looking away at Neverwinter, and Eliza could get a better view of the woods that we were approaching. So we went down to the crossroads, to the junction wherein we get to near Phandalin, when all of a sudden we come across 2 dead horses. It's been about half a day, so not really all of a sudden, but we come across 2 dead horses in the road. Now, these 2 horses blocking the road immediately told us that there was something wrong, but we'd also twigged pretty quickly that Gundren and Silva had headed off the night before. So while we were staying at the tavern, or rather my party members were staying at the tavern and I was staying at the temple, Gundren and Silva had been had gone before us, before the wagon. So we had to assume that this might have been their horses. So rather than inspect the horses like I think we were supposed to do, but I can't remember, the last time I read this book was I think a few years ago. So So I can't remember exactly when the ambush is supposed to begin, but yes, there's a goblin ambush. Goblins immediately, rather, start firing, or rather, one goblin did. A goblin started firing on Eliza and missed, thankfully. And they began to shout, "Oh no, not again!" And then combat began. Now, I am pleased to report that I got the first natural 20 of the game, although technically the goblins did, because the goblins got a natural 20 for initiative, and they got a +2 bonus as well. I think that comes from their dexterity, and I also got a +2 to my natural 20 as well. Now, our DM, Rui, I apologise that I'm butchering the pronunciation of his name, because he is Portuguese, and he says his name differently to how it's spelt, at least, again, with his accent. So our DM, Rui, he was kind enough to actually make me go first. So he gave me 22.1 initiative on the Roll20 initiative table in order for me to go first. So what we'd done is we leapt off the cart. I'd left off the cart, and I decided to go around the cart and look to the south embankment, or escarpment. I don't know how that's pronounced. If there is a special pronunciation for it, I apologise. And I see there a goblin archer and one with a scimitar. So I immediately launch a sacred flame, and it misses. It just does bugger all to this creature. Then the goblins begin their attacks. They start going after Emil and Eliza in the North Banks, and the goblin with the scimitar immediately heads towards Shoria, still on the cart. And I don't think he has enough movement. I don't think he has enough. I think he has to use a dash action to reach her, or he misses his attack. Or I think he tries to attack me. I think both goblins try to attack me on the south embankment, but because of my AC of 18, their attacks just ping harmlessly off my shield. So then I think it's Eliza's turn. She's shooting away at the goblin archer. Another one is approaching Emil, and unfortunately gives him a rather nasty wound, I think in his first or second round of combat. So when it's Shoria's turn, she uses her Fey Presence, because she has patron is the Archfey, or Archfey. I don't know how you pronounce it. I say Archfey personally, except when it's for mages. Strangely, I always say Archmage. Anyway, so she uses her Fey Presence to charm this creature, and it was, I think, the DM's choice, because I remember in the tutorial arena, which I first did, I was playing Mr. Barthelmet, my human warlock of the Archfey also, and the giant centipede that took a chunk out of me was frightened, so I'm not sure if it's something that they choose. But even then, Shoria's character, it would have been more in character for her to charm this goblin. So this goblin immediately fell in love with her, and was ordered to attack this other archer, the archer on the south banks of the road to Phandalin. And so he does, and he hits. Only doing 1 damage, I think it was, but still, it's better than nothing, I guess. So anyway, it gets to the second round of combat by that point, and I immediately charge to the goblin, who had only grazed his fellow, and I was fortunate enough to do a fair bit of damage to him, and to do a fair bit of damage, and enough to kill him. So Garveld, in his ritualistic way, he couldn't speak Goblin, of course, so he simply, as he knocked the Goblin down, he pointed to the sky and said something along the lines of, "Let this be the last thing you see before you enter Kelemvor's realm," and immediately proceeded to smash the Warhammer over his face. So that was good. So that was dead fun as well. Emil had managed to get revenge on the goblin that hit him, swiping at the back of his legs, and then bringing the Warhammer down over his head again. There's a lot of head smushing in this. It really puts the Toxic Avenger to shame, I think. By this point, the archer on the northern banks had hidden away in the bushes, only to reappear again near Emil, I think, a round later. So, yeah, and unfortunately he managed to get away at the end when shortly after Shoria had Eldritch blasted, I think, the other goblin and that's 3 goblins dead now. So so she killed that one with an Eldritch blast on her turn, exploding it, absolutely horrifically exploding it. And Shoria, Eliza, the wood elf fighter, she equips a longbow and she tries to shoot at the goblin that's running away, and sadly misses. So combat ends. 1 goblin gets away, but at least we have some tracks to follow. But that's not before we start looting the bodies. We find very few things that we can really use. We find some torches, and one of them ends up leading to disaster. We find some food. I say food in quote marks because it was rancid and not particularly edible. But it will come in handy later. Right towards the end of this adventure, this episode, I guess, this session. I think Eliza managed to find a ruby, which was rather fortunate. I hadn't really considered how valuable that might be later on, to be honest. I hadn't actually considered how much that must be worth in gold, so I'm really pleased that she's got some treasure that hopefully she'll survive to pawn off and spend, in addition to the money that she's getting from this, providing of course that Gundren and Silvar are alive. Which leads us now to inspecting the horses. We find that their arrows definitely killed them. If I was playing a sort of ranger character, I would be asking if I recognised what if I recognise the kind of craftsmanship. So is this hobgoblin crafting? Is this goblin crafting? Is this some sort of bugbear crafting? Is it orcish? Are these, like what kind of flight? What are the flights made out of? Is this any special timber that these arrows have been made with? What the arrowheads made of? Are they stolen arrows? Are they stolen? Are they, like, for example, human stuff? Are they made by humans, perhaps? Or some other sentient race that can actually make decent arrows with tools and whatnot, rather than very makeshift ones that goblins might. But I'm playing a cleric, so he wouldn't really be bothered about that. He was basically too busy praying over the bodies, and he doesn't really have any sort of sanctified dead spells. I don't think he gets those for a while. So he was just sort of doing that while the others were proceeding to think about what their next move is going to be. So the first thing is we had to move the horses. So we moved the horses out of the way, and then we had to decide, right, what's going to go on with the cart, because these horses, they also have as well an emblem of the Lord's Alliance, which we found out we knew what the Lord's Alliance was in the tavern. I apologise for not mentioning that earlier. So we knew what the Lord's Alliance was, and we knew that this must have been Silvar's horse, or it must have been Sildar's horse. I apologise if I'm not getting the name right. So we must have known that it was them. It was at least their horses, or it was someone representing the Lord's Alliance. So we had to move the horses out of the way. So we moved those to the east of the map, to the furthest eastern edge of this map, and we then proceeded to decide where we're going to take the wagon. Now we can either see to the needs of the many or the needs of the few. So we managed to see that there were tracks that had led 2 people. It seemed to be dragging 2 people towards the north. So we had to decide if we're going to rescue Gundren and Silvar, who we assumed to be Gundren and Silvar, or if we're going to take the wagon to the town of Phandalin. We spent quite a lot of time bickering about this. I think it was actually about half an hour we spent, half an hour, 3/4 of an hour maybe, just arguing about what we're going to do with the cart. The thing is that we eventually decided to... I'm going to cut that story short and say, very short, and say that we ended up going north to Cragmore Hideout. I think, is it called Cragmore Hideout? Cragmore Hideout. Because we didn't see to the needs of the many, because the items on this wagon were not seemingly essential. They weren't food and water, it wasn't medical supplies, it was pickaxes, lanterns, sacks and shovels. Things that we didn't, things that you couldn't eat. Or at least, I don't know, maybe dwarves can. But so we decided in the end that we were going to go north, but not before Shoria. Not Shoria. I do apologise for saying Shoria all the time. Not before Eliza, our wood elf, used her scouting skills to have a look at the road ahead. Now she actually successfully found some traps there. She successfully found some traps that were that could have. They were mostly harmless. I think it was like a pit that would have done, I think, 1d6 bludgeoning damage if you fell into it, and I think a fighter could have taken it. I think fighters have like the second most hit dice in the game, so she would have been alright there. And she's also got second wind as well, I think, at first level, so that would have helped. And also as well, she's got, you know, a paladin with lay on hands and a cleric, and that's something else I need to go back on. I apologise for all the twists and turns these stories take of mine. But yeah, Emil chose to use his lay on hands on himself, which I'm pretty sure he can do, instead of using my magic, because I've only got 2 spell slots, and he was very considerate enough to say, don't use your spell slots because it's going to be expensive and you only get them back on a long rest. So, fair enough. So, Shori had managed to get past, I think, the 2 traps that there were. She warned the party of them. We proceeded to hide the cart incredibly well. Our DM joked that we hid it so well, even we couldn't find it. And he referenced Metal Gear Solid and a camera. Like if you play Metal Gear Solid, like not even a camera could detect this. And I thought, oh, that's quite good then. I assume. I don't know. I haven't really played any Metal Gear Solid. So we made our way to Craigmore Hideout, and Eliza had also heard as well towards the. I mean, this map here that I'm going to put up on screen is reversed. This map will be sort of mirrored in a way. So it'll show here on the western side of the bushes, that little alcove where the where a bonfire would have been burning. She could have heard the bonfire burning, but she didn't actually hear any goblins or any other sort of nasty beasts that might have been there, or even any survivors that might have escaped the cavern and the eating cave, as one of the goblins called it, or rather later going to call it. So we went there. The bonfire had died out, not that we could see, but we could hear that there was no more fire there. There were no goblins there, and we were sort of sat just at the entrance of this cavern, opposite the stream, and we were sort of beginning our plan. What are we going to do? And the strategy here, I have to say, I was very impressed with the level of strategy that the party was using. So the idea was that Shoria would use one of her spell slots to cast Minor Illusion, and use the voice of a goblin saying, "Get your get your asses out of here! We've got a hole, we've got a hole, or there's a body here for eating." So she used that Minor Illusion and managed to lure out one of the goblins. We were hidden in the bushes on the, I guess, right-hand side of this cave on this map. We were hiding in the bushes, and Eliza was able to, I don't think it was a crit, but I think it was near enough a crit. She hit this goblin so hard that like his mother in Baldur's Gate would have felt it. She didn't really idea as he was crossing the stream, and he's mortally wounded. Like he's almost dead. So we bring this goblin. He's screaming and shouting and going, "Ah! Ah!" And so we sort of gag his mouth and bring him into the bushes and interrogate him. Now, realizing that he's actually lost a lot of blood, I think he was actually on like 2 hit points. I suggested that I could always use Spare the Dying, which for Clerics to the Grave is a bonus action, and it has a range of, I think, 30 or 60 feet. So that would have been quite useful. Not that he died anyway. I didn't particularly want to use, sort of abuse Spare the Dying, just bringing him out of his death saving throws over and over again if he falls below 0 hit points. So he was losing a lot of blood. So I decided to use one of the torches that I looted from the goblins, and so I would cauterize his wounds using my medicine skill, because I get a +4 to that, and I'm really glad that I took that, because it managed to cauterize the wound and didn't set him on fire, although the smell of crispy goblin did fill the air. We managed to interrogate him, find out a bit more about the layout of the cave, which was a very, very rudimentary layout of the cave and directions that he gave us. This goblin had also told us there might have been about 1 or 2 goblins in there. He's didn't really have much intelligence. He was also in a lot of pain, So we sort of felt he wouldn't be telling the truth anyway. It's just that, but he was telling the truth. He was just very dumb. He couldn't count. So he managed to record at least the presence of 2 goblins there. And he kept pleading for healing. Basically, he kept saying that, I'll tell you everything, but I need, if you fix me up, but I need fixing up because I'm gonna die. So the wound is cauterized. He took 1 point of fire damage, and then we had to decide how to deal with the torch, because it might attract attention. The smell of this flaming torch might draw attention. So I was mulling and cogitating about how I was going to put out this torch. Now, the obvious answer, a smart player would just put it in the stream, where it's pretty obvious where it is on the map. Yeah, we've known that the stream's been here for a while. It's evidently clear. We crossed the bleeding thing, and still I managed to nearly cause a forest fire. All of Neverwinter Woods nearly burnt down because I decided I want to use this torch again. So I basically put it down in the grass, tried to roll it around, like stop, drop, and roll, that kind of thing, per Shoria's suggestion, or rather per her player Annie's suggestion. And I thought, well, I did want to use the torch again. I don't want it to be too damp so that it wouldn't be able to be lit again. So I thought, well, I'm going to roll it around in the grass to see if I can put it out and sort of stamp it out. No, it doesn't work. So what I do is I immediately, instead of, stamping on it with my scale mail boot, which I would imagine is flame retardant, I instead got my blanket out of my backpack and I started wafting at it. I started waving this blanket at it, and it wasn't making a difference because I think I had to pass like a survival check, and the survival check got something like a 2. So anyway, Shoria and Eliza also tried to help. Or I think Eliza was like holding the goblin down and trying to gag his mouth while he was screaming about the fire, and Shoria also helped. And then Emil. Poor Emil, who suffered fates worse than I did at the tutorial arena. His blanket is covered in holy oil he's accidentally covered it in holy oils from his prayer in the tavern, and the blanket sets fire. Not only does it set fire, he also burns himself for, I think it was two damage. I think it was. I think he set himself on fire for 2 damage. Oh dear. So that was rather unfortunate that he did that. And so he decided not to use his lay on hands or any sort of medical skills. I really should have seen if I could use my medicine skill on him to sort of patch him up, or do something to sort of diagnose it. Maybe give him an idea, like tell him what he can use, like some sort of salve. Maybe we might have actually been able to spend some time looking around to see if there are any sort of berries that I could make a quick lotion out of to heal the wound, some sort of salve, some sort of burn salve. I didn't. Hindsight is, as ever, nat 2020. And we eventually put out this fire that I think has spread about 15 feet maybe in diameter. And so eventually that episode is over at long last, and the goblin is hogtied, to which Shoria would say a lot of some people would pay a lot of money to have that done to them, which is very true. And oh yes, I think as well her chant for the I forgot to mention this earlier, this is how Shoria got inspiration. I can't remember if it was in the combat where she used a chant for Eldritch Blast, or if it was her chant for the Minor Illusion, or some other spell. But she said sausages in Portuguese, and she got inspiration for that because our DM, as I said earlier, is Portuguese. So she got inspiration for appealing to the DM there, so that was well earned, I think. And she spent ages rehearsing it as well, so I'm glad it paid off in the end. So yeah, so she got her inspiration there. Anyway, getting back to this goblin. So this goblin was hogtied, and Emil said that in his against his better judgment, he's going to use lay on hands to heal the goblin's wounds a bit, and that when we leave this cave, if he's still there, we will allow him to go free. So this goblin is sort of nodding frantically as he's bound and gagged, and we then proceed to go inside the cave. Now, as we enter the cave, we find some wolves that are chained up to an iron rod attached to a stalagmite, and Eliza has gone in to scout just to have a look, and these wolves are in a pretty bad shape. They're starved, and they don't seem hostile at first. And I think she uses an animal handling or nature check to have a look at the state of these wolves. And yeah, they're looking in pretty bad shape. They're not hostile, but they are fairly weak, and they're desperate for food. So Eliza says that we can come on in, that these wolves are okay, they're not going to hurt us. And and then Shoria begins to start tossing sausages at them. And that's 2 sausages, so that's 2 wolves fed. And then I proceed to throw some of the food from the looted goblin from earlier to the back of the room. And one of the wolves strains, the wolf at the back strains to get this food, but eventually manages, and he's rather happy. We then proceed to have a look at the chains to see if they can be broken, and we do. And we decided that we were going to free the wolves because we didn't really. We thought it would be better than sort of keeping them around, trying to tame them, and maybe let them help us defeat the goblins. I think it would have been more hassle, and even then they might not have been fighting fit anyway. So if anything, they might have even been a burden. So we released the wolves, and it was just as they started running out of the cave entrance that I said, you know what? They're going to find the goblin, aren't they? And at that point, Sam just screamed out loud, saying, oh, no, God, no, don't let it happen. Don't let that happen. So RDM, being quite the sadist, decided to roll, didn't he? He decided to roll perception to see if they could smell the goblin in the bushes that was hidden away. Now, they didn't. They didn't, and the DM sort of said that it was even though the goblin also smelt of burnt flesh, the burnt grass had sort of hidden away. It would sort of overpower the smell of burnt goblin, so they weren't going to go there. And then I, once again, having suggested that they might eat the goblin, I then also suggested, hang on, if they're going south, they might end up eating the horses. At that point, I was immediately shut down and saying, stop giving the DM ideas. But they did seem quite merciful in saying that the horses are about 5 miles away, so the wolves aren't going to get them. Phew. So, also as well, there are dead horses that they can eat as well. So, maybe they'll go there if they do see them. But still. Now, we didn't have to. I should just point out as well that we are doing milestone XP, so there was no benefit to fighting the wolves. There would have been no bonus XP or anything like that. So I think we also dealt with that situation rather cleverly. Now who knows, maybe those wolves will come back to help us, or indeed to hinder us. And it was at that point really that the adventure the session came to an end. We're now deciding on what we're going to do next, and we're kind of trying to get an idea of the layout of the cave before we go any further into the eating cave, which on this map will be towards the north east. So we shall see. I'm just going to look what it looks like in the book without spoiling anything. What does it look like in here? Oh yeah, that's right. So the map I'm looking at in the book. Please don't pause this if you're in my group and cheat. Yeah, the map I'm looking at in the book is in fact the one that we had in the game. I really should have looked at that instead of these ones that I've got up on my screen now. But still, never mind. So that's where the session ended. We got some feedback from our wonderful DM. and indeed wonderful players as well. Everyone there that I play with is fantastic. I've never, out of the 2 DMs I've never had any problems at all, and the players are wonderful. We were told that in Rui's games we might be finding secret doors and things like that, but there was nothing here. We basically avoided the traps. We avoided the traps that Eliza found. We were given nudges to not kill goblins, certain goblins, and we were also reminded as well that we can choose to kill or incapacitate a goblin to make sure that we can interrogate them or use them as bait or fodder, anything like that really. So we were reminded that we could do that, but we also have to be explicit as well, otherwise it's assumed that we want to kill them. And we were also commended as well on our bargaining with Gundren, which I was rather pleased that the party did, because my character has virtually no charisma, and I don't ever want them to either. I think they will always have a charisma of 8, which I know is probably going to ruin the game at some point if we actually do take our characters beyond level 5, which we're expecting to reach by the end of this adventure. We haven't leveled up yet, but I assume that during our next short session, which takes place at 7 PM, probably take us to about 10 PM at the very latest, because we're only clearing out a cave, and the combat has been the fastest part of all of this. So so I think we'll be due for a level up, and maybe even a bit of a rest as well. I don't know about a short rest or long rest, but so hopefully we'll be able to do that next week, and then who knows what happens thereafter. So so I haven't really got much else to report after that. It was just a fantastic time all around, and I have to say I'm really glad that we started out in the tavern. It was a good chance for all the players to meet each other and sort of assume that they know one another, or at least can introduce one another. I did find in the adventure, I think it does say in the book actually, that you start. Let's have a look. You can let players invent their own reasons for visiting Phandalin, or you can use the following adventure hook. I think it says something about... Oh, no, they are in the city of Neverwinter. Sorry, I thought it was that they started out on the cart to Phandalin, already hired by Gundren Rockseeker. So, no, they do actually start out in the city. So that my apologies there. But I like that idea. But assuming that you do start on the cart, I did think that wouldn't really make much sense, that you all of a sudden start introducing one another, unless you're just like reaming off your character backstory. So we will have to see where the adventures of Group 89 go further in Phandalin. And I'm hoping, and I really do hope, because I like campaigns. I mean, don't get me wrong, I thanks to this group on Outroll, the Discord server, and I will talk about them at some stage. Thanks to the group on this server, I have had a much greater appreciation for one-shots. I really do like developing my characters. I do desperately want to see them go further and get to the demigod status that I think comes at about levels 17 to 20. I realise that'd take possibly even years, especially at the pace we're going at. But I would absolutely love to do that. But I do appreciate one-shots now and these shorter campaigns, because I must admit I don't feel like my character's really bringing a lot. He was actually rather quiet throughout all of this. So I think maybe I might be okay with starting another campaign with a different kind of character rather than this one. Although no doubt he will probably be some kind of morbid doctor type, such as my sort of favourite character archetype of lately. It was originally like the sort of skulker investigator kind of character, but now, the medical type. So yes, absolutely fantastic time. I look forward to the second session. I don't think I'll have much to report in that one, so I might combine that story with another one, but we shall see. Might combine part 2 with part 3. Roll them into one episode, so we'll have to see. So if you made it this far, thank you ever so much for watching. Yes, I haven't got a catchphrase. May you keep your powder dry and your dice clacky. Oh yes, and we've also confirmed as well that TPK in Faerun means time to please Kelemvor.